Welcome to another fun-filled episode of 10-minute drawing techniques. This is a show where I basically try and show you some drawing techniques in under 10 minutes. This is episode 2, Field of Vision. In the previous episode, I basically showed you how to deal with point-to-point drawing, how to plot out lines and plan out your strokes. Anyway, the following episodes are going to be geared towards helping figure out exactly where those lines should be, the reasons that you put points down in a certain way, and a lot of that is really perspective, learning how to deal with perspective. So anyway, this is about field of vision, and this is basically the first in a set of perspective drawing techniques. Okay, so anyway, one of the problems with the current way of dealing with perspective, they basically tell you, well, okay, let's just draw an arbitrary horizon line. I guess you can use a low horizon line, medium horizon, whatever. You pick a vanishing point, for a one-point perspective. You might pick two vanishing points for two-point perspective. You might pick a third point for, a three-point vanishing perspective. I'm not even sure where I'm supposed to put these vanishing points, but, you're basically just supposed to start, drawing straight lines with a ruler outwards. Sorry, I don't have a ruler on me right now. And, I guess you're supposed to, draw straight lines out. Like, what angle am I supposed to draw these things at? This is really weird because, I guess if I was to draw a building that was, going further and further, if I was, drawing a really tall building, okay, I guess it's all fine and good that it's, getting, it's getting really distorted. It's starting to look really strange, And the other thing is that if I were to, say, pan my camera upwards, what's going to happen to this building? Is this building going to just, like it's getting wider and wider as you go up, but what's going to happen is if we pan upwards, is that building just going to, just keep on getting wider and wider and wider? Like, no, it's not. It's not going to just keep getting bigger and bigger and more freakishly distorted. You know why it's not going to happen that way? It's because this is not the way perspective works. So, if on the other hand we let's take a person, put him in, there's his nose, this is a top-down view, okay? And we put him inside a tunnel with a rectangular cross-section, okay? And the special thing about this tunnel is that it extends onto infinity, all right? So from a front view, he'll see something like this. He'll see, there's the ceiling of the tunnel, there's the floor of the tunnel down here, and they'll have even divisions going this way. If he looks down in that direction, off into infinity, he'll see the vanishing point down there. It becomes a one-point perspective, right? In theory. Plus there's the tunnel divisions going this way. And to the left, if he looks that way, he'll see the same thing, pretty much. Another set of vanishing points. A single vanishing point, one-point perspective. Okay. Now, the thing is, what happens if he looks in this direction? Well, I guess we can kind of take these two and maybe blend them. And when we blend them, we get to see a fisheye effect. Familiar fisheye effect. This is what happens if you start taking if you put a camera on a tripod, where he's standing, and take, multiple pictures at different angles. You start to get this effect, all right? And this curvature is not something that you can get with a ruler. You have to, it just can't be done. And the other thing is that these lines don't say horizontal, getting closer and closer and closer to you. They're gonna start distorting like this. Hang on, let me undo that. Let's start in the middle. These lines may run underneath your feet and over your head, but then as they go off to the side, then they become more and more horizontal until they go off into the distance. Same thing with these lines, they're going to start turning. Okay, so perspective does funny things to you. when you start looking one way, looking the other way, it doesn't behave the way that they tell you to do it in almost every darn perspective textbook I deal with. Okay, 5-minute mark. Got 5 minutes left to show you some more stuff. So anyway, this is all about your field of vision, right? It's like when I take your field of view and I make it so that you have a 180-degree field of vision, okay? This is what you see. You start to see this weird fisheye effect, okay? And if I were to, let's say, take the same situation, except this time we'll take this guy, and there's his nose again, there's his ears, okay, and put him up against this giant wall, this giant wall that extends off to infinity again. Then what you're going to see is something, more like this. This might be the center of the wall, but then, as you look higher and higher up the wall, you're going to start getting the same, fisheye effect. As you look off towards the edges, you'll start to see a fisheye effect. And I'll explain why. The reason you get the fisheye effect is because the distance between the man and the wall is very short when you look straight ahead. But when you look off to the sides, the distance between yourself, your point of view and the wall increases, starts to increase. And as that wall goes off to infinity, eventually you'll be just looking off, and that distance will be almost off into infinity. So, if we imagine that there were a set of pillars, standing here, he might see one pillar as being this tall, and then another pillar as being that tall, and another pillar being about, it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller as they go off into the vanishing point. Okay, so the other thing that governs the size of the pillar, okay, is if we view this from the side, okay, and we take let's say this guy has a certain field of vision. He can only see, this angle, this limited angle. The pillar, this angle here is very special. It's called a field of vision, or FOV for short. And that's the field of vision, and that is the angle that you can see. In this case, is about 90 degrees. You've got a 90-degree field of vision. But if we look at the object here, okay, an object here may only take up, about 30 degrees of that total 90. So then the resulting picture, if he can see 90 degrees up and bottom, then that object's only going to take about 30 degrees. So he gets 90 degrees up and down here. He only gets 30 degrees of the object here. Whereas if the object, if we slide it back, it takes up even less of this field of vision. By the way, I don't know exactly what the exact term of this angle here is. I guess you can call it the field of object, or FOO. Basically the field of object is the size of an object, the apparent size of an object in the frame is basically a proportion of, it's a proportion of the field of object divided by the field of the vision. So you've got the field of object here, this is the FOO, and this is your FOV, going up and down that way. So, when objects start to get closer and closer, when an object, is really close here, it winds up taking his entire field of vision, this object winds up being really tall, huge, in fact. Okay? So, keep that in mind. Keep in mind, exactly how much of your field of vision is something taking up. Because this, basically the distance starts, as distance starts to get less and less and less, even the smallest changes in position are going to make a big difference. Whereas when you get further and further and further away, off into infinity, then any positional changes, if I take this pillar and let's say if I shift it, down a little bit, down over here, it's not going to make as much difference as if I were to shift it down, at this distance, if this were to move down here. Okay? So field of vision, it's also a factor of distance. So anyway, we're just about out of time. Anyway, keep these in mind. I'm going to show you some more stuff later on. Thanks for watching and listening. Onwards to episode 3. Take care, guys. Bye.